Let's look at Lebanon. We had been reporting that the president was going to begin consulting political parties to find a new prime minister, but now hearing that that has been postponed. We've got Zeina Khodr in Beirut to take us through the latest. Zeina.
Yes, the constitutional process to appoint a prime minister and form a new government was supposed to begin. Now the president's palace issued a statement saying that those parliamentary consultations have been postponed until Thursday. In that statement, it mentions that the caretaker prime minister, Saad al-Hariri, the man who was believed to be nominated by the end of today, asked for this postponement in order to allow for more consultations and negotiations among the different political factions. Lebanon's political parties are not in agreement. There's a deep divide. Yes, like I mentioned, Saad al-Hariri is the likely candidate to return as prime minister. He received the support of the Sunni religious establishment in this country. There's a sectarian-based system of government. The post of prime minister is reserved for a Sunni Muslim, but he doesn't have enough support to push ahead with his own government in parliament. He's going to need 65 votes in order to get the vote of confidence in parliament. What Saad al-Hariri wants is to head a government of independent technocrats in order to steer Lebanon out of this economic crisis. But his political rivals, mainly the Iranian-backed Hezbollah, as well as the president, Michel, Aoun, they believe that the next government should have representatives of the different political parties. So the political forces are not in agreement on how the makeup of the next cabinet should be. It's hard bargaining, really, because if anyone is to make any concession, it means weakening their political power. So the constitutional process now postponed. Many were hoping that a government would be formed in order to enact much needed reforms to receive international aid. The economy is in dire straits. People are losing their jobs. Companies are closing. The local currency is losing value. So now further negotiations expected in the coming days.
And then the pressure from the street continues, doesn't it, Zeina? Take us through what happened on Sunday night.
2 nights of violence in downtown Beirut. That's the center of the capital, the epicenter of the protest movement. Security forces clashing with unarmed protesters. 2 consecutive nights, tear gas was used, rubber bullets, water cannons. Dozens of protesters were injured, and according to the Interior Ministry, security forces as well were injured. Both sides accusing each other of instigating the violence. People on the street believe that those in power, the governing elite, they have taken a decision to use the armed forces to crush what has been really a peaceful protest movement against those in power. So they believe in what we have been seeing in the past few days is excessive use of force by the armed forces against the people.
A second night of violence in central Beirut. Tear gas was again used by security forces to disperse protesters who were outside Parliament Square. They had gathered here in a show of defiance. A day earlier, Parliament police used what Amnesty International described as excessive force against an overwhelmingly peaceful protest. Many now fear state intimidation against the leaderless protest movement is growing.
I don't think it's possible for people to see the way that the aggression and the way that they treated protesters yesterday and to kind of turn a blind eye. Even if they were afraid, it seems like they understand that unity and numbers are really what can create momentum and that can keep us going.
Zeina was among the dozens of protesters beaten up by security forces during Saturday night's confrontations, the worst since the uprising began in mid-October. Both sides accused each other of instigating the violence. There are fears this could be the beginning of a new phase in what has largely been a peaceful opposition movement.
There seems to be a decision by those in power for the army and security forces to confront the protesters. This is dangerous. From the start of the uprising, the army took a decision not to be harsh with the protesters. But the situation has changed in the past few days.
Politicians are making it clear they will not stand down. Agreeing to the demands of the protesters would mean giving up power. They have long benefited from the sectarian-based system of government by exploiting the state's resources, allowing them to maintain support in their communities. Instead, the politicians are bargaining among themselves over the makeup of the next government.
The lack of government makes it difficult to pull Lebanon out of its worst economic crisis in decades, which is why the protests began.
We're not going for weapons. We only need our needs. We're asking for our needs for hospitality, for our hospital, for our medication, to eat, to have job. All people here are jobless. All people. And who are working, they are having half their salaries. This is another life.
Their calls for change are not being heard. Politicians seem to be sending a message that they are ready to use whatever means necessary, including force, to protect their power.
To maintain stability, you're going to need political agreement, a political deal among the different factions, and you're going to need a government in order to revive the economy. The international community making it very clear we are not going to bail out Lebanon this time if the next government does not meet the aspirations of the people.
Thank you for all of that. That's Zeina Khodr reporting from Beirut.